You're listening to Stimulus Tech Talk, a conversation-based podcast created by Stimulus Technologies that covers a range of topics related to business and technology.
To Stimulus Tech Talk, I'm Sherry Lip, the marketing manager at Stimulus Technologies, and I am here today, as always, with Nathan Whitaker, the CEO of Stimulus Technologies. And today we are going to be talking about why cybersecurity is an essential part of your managed services, IT managed services plan. Welcome, Nathan.
Hey, Sherry, and welcome everybody.
We talk a lot about cybersecurity, Nathan, and we talk about, the importance of IT services and all the things we can do, but putting them together as a package, we didn't always used to do that. So we were kind of like, you had your cybersecurity service, you had your managed service. So what is the importance now that we're talking about having cybersecurity as a part of your managed service packages?
I think we looked at them as two separate things previously, mostly because the services that we were offering as part of managed services, which were basic antivirus, firewalls, backups, and other basic security mechanisms, were for many years sufficient to protect most small businesses. And what we found is two things. One, those basic services are no longer sufficient to protect any business or even individuals from a potential cyber attack. And then we're also finding that a lot of small businesses are required to comply with new regulatory environments that they may not have had to previously, whether that's just to get an insurance policy or regulatory items like HIPAA or NIST or FTC safeguards or CMMC. There's just a lot of regulatory frameworks that are out there that the government is requiring that even small businesses with one employee or one person working there comply with those. So it's no longer optional to have advanced security and some compliance inside your organization. It's essential today, and that really has been a shift over the last couple of years that businesses have had to start implementing these new technologies.
And what do you think is the biggest misconception or misunderstanding or just not knowing that business owners have about managed services?
Well, I think the biggest thing that people look at from a security standpoint or think about that's a misconception is that they're too small to be a target of cyber criminals. There's obviously cyber criminals are going after large organizations because the payoff is much bigger, but that is a much harder target. You can't imagine that a company like Target or Home Depot or these companies that have been targeted and hackers have won against don't have cyber security in place. They do. They have a significant amount of cybersecurity in place, and the hackers still can get through that to win a large payday. Uh, Small businesses have far less cybersecurity protections in place. And so it's much easier for these criminals to target a small business over and another small business again and another small business. And they often win, more times than not against these small businesses, and they can get it done faster. So rather than having a multi-million-dollar payday for a hacker, or 10 or 20 million or $100 million payday, they may or may not get that in a couple of years worth of work. But if they can win against a small business, the average is about a $300,000 win against a small business. If they can do a few of those a year, they're making a lot of money. You got to look at it, a return on investment of their time. And that's small businesses are an easy target because a lot of them don't have security in place and they're not protected, and so that's why these criminals are going after the small businesses. So don't think that you're too small. Even an individual that has a few $1,000s in the bank account and some credit cards with open balances is a target for these cyber criminals.
And we've talked a lot about layered approach to cybersecurity. How does that work in with if you're buying a complete plan?
So we inside Stimulus Technologies have separate people and separate departments that work on the different areas of cybersecurity, whether it's the compliance side or the implementation side. We have different tools and techniques and outside vendors that keep us secure and keep you secure. And so having a cohesive protection plan, it is still layered, but they are all working in conjunction with each other to provide an overall security mechanism. So rather than think about a block walls protecting your fortress, rather than having those be separate, one at a time, think about them being woven together in a much stronger force. And so that's what we're doing with integrating IT management and cybersecurity, is those two technologies are woven together to provide the strongest protection, and we provide that layered defense along the way, but it's just woven together in one complete package.
And that reminds me, we have talked about this way quite a bit in the past now about the kind of the assumption that businesses might have that their IT guy is taking care of cybersecurity. So how does that uh, fit in as far as like what do you think is the minimum amount of cybersecurity that should be in a managed IT services package, and how should people find out what is actually what they're paying for with their IT person?
Well, it's often the IT person that has to implement a lot of the technologies that a cybersecurity and compliance expert is requiring. And so a compliance person and a cybersecurity person will look over and review the infrastructure and give a report card and say, okay, these are the critical areas we need to work on. And then they will tell the IT department to implement these technologies. And that's the way that it is best set up and works, and that's how we've done it. We've hired an outside third party that does audits for us and for our clients, and they look over those environments, and then they report back to our team and saying, these are compliance requirements, these are general best practices, and these are the holes that are missing inside that organization. And based off of these regular audits that are done by a third party, we can fill in the gaps. And so the IT side of things are the ones that implement doing regular system updates, ensuring that those are occurring. That's a minimum part of cybersecurity, is making sure that your operating system is patched. And we've talked in the past, Windows 11 is now required. Windows 10 is end of life later in the year. Same thing with Macs and your iPhones and Android phones. They go end of life with their technology, so making sure that those are patched and up to date. EDR for your antivirus. We've talked about that. Next generation antivirus is an essential part of it. Having a comprehensive detection system that integrates with your EDR system to detect threats in your cloud environment, and making sure that your cloud environment, and if you have servers on site, that those are backed up as the last line of defense. Employee training, and so annual assessments, and then monthly and weekly mini assessments really help with preventing cybersecurity. And then multi-factor authentication is also part of it. And again, these are all things that your IT department are setting up. So multi-factor authentication, especially on your cloud services like Microsoft 365 and other systems. Those are a lot of the essential parts of the protection. And one other thing that I'll mention is the email protection, and integrating that to prevent spam and other viruses coming in through email is also an essential part of it. So all those are pretty much IT solutions, but we're the cybersecurity are looking to see where there's gaps. Is there an email account that isn't configured right? Is there multi-factor authentication that's not turned on? inside your environment, because the hackers will find that. They'll find the little breach, they'll find the hole in the wall, and they'll enter through that way. And so cybersecurity, those third-party audits will say these are where the holes are, and then the IT department is the one that comes in and fixes it.
So if somebody has cybersecurity liability insurance, how does that play a part as far as if they don't have those holes fixed or at least looked at?
Yeah, so that's a big thing that's coming up recently, and we about this time last year we had a webinar on this. That Dave Lester came in. He's an from an insurance company brokerage, and talked a lot about this. That when you fill out those attestations with your insurance company of saying, we have advanced antivirus in place, we have multi-factor authentication on all critical accounts. We have third-party monitoring, annual breach assessments, and penetration testing. If you've checked all those boxes and said you're doing all of that, and then you have a breach and come to find out, well, we kind of had multi-factor authentication on most accounts, but the owner didn't really like having to enter the code every time he logged in, so we turned it off for him, and that's the account that gets hacked. They're gonna say, one, you lied on your insurance application, which is a legal federal offense, and they'll deny coverage. And they may sue you for filling your insurance application out incorrectly. And so you think you're paying this money for protection, but in the end, you're setting yourself up for greater liability by filling out the information incorrectly. So it's really important today to ensure that with cyber liability and employee theft policies, that you're complying with everything that you say that you're doing on there. And it would be better, honestly, to not have that insurance than to lie about the things you're doing, and then take the time to get those things implemented, and then go back and get the insurance. Because if you apply for some type of insurance and you're not doing what you say you're doing on it, that's certainly a big issue.
And have you seen that happen or heard about that happening?
Yeah, I have not had a company that I've worked with that have had that happen, but there's certainly a lot of news articles out there that insurance companies are posting it out there as a warning to companies that they are after them for filling out these forms incorrectly. And so there's lawsuits that are pending through the courts, and some that have been won by insurance companies already against even small businesses that have filled out these attestations incorrectly and applications incorrectly.
So when there are legal requirements, and of course there are all kinds of different things, whether it's basic or specific to an industry, do we or somebody like us as a managed services provider help businesses go over that so we can help them implement that and help them understand what it means?
Yeah, that's part of the compliance side of things. So, depending on what the compliance framework is, we would have to have certain certifications. We may or may not have them to be able to help you with that. I mentioned CMMC is one of those. Those are for Defense Department contractors. We're not a CMMC provider. And so what we would do is work with a company that specializes in CMMC compliance. As a compliance advisor, they would tell us what we would need to implement, and then work with the company to ensure that they're meeting all their compliance requirements. So really depends on what compliance frameworks they have if they need an outside provider. If you're just trying to implement NIST controls, for example, or FTC safeguards, we can certainly help you with those. Those are standard frameworks that we can help you from a compliance standpoint. But if there's certifications like HIPAA or CMMC, we would have to work with a third party, because those are specialty compliance requirements. But the IT side of it is very similar on all of them. The things you have to do are not dramatically different from framework to framework, or compliance requirements to compliance requirements. So, us as the IT provider, we'll just implement the things that your compliance company recommends, and then they'll work to ensure that we're meeting those requirements.
And to bring an example that the business owners can relate to, what do you think is the biggest or the most common threat that small businesses fall for or infiltrates their system?
Yeah, the number one threat right now, and it's on the FBI's top list, is business email compromise. It's amazing 20 years later, we're still talking about this of clicking bad links or downloading, bad files that come in through your email. And unfortunately, with AI, those emails and the attachments and things that they're doing are just becoming more and more sophisticated. So you have to have, really good protection systems that are AI driven and good training of your employees to prevent against these type of attacks. But the number one right now is still business email compromise. And that leads to a lot of the other attacks, whether it's financial fraud or ransomware or some of these other type of fraud systems or data theft. A lot of it really starts with business email, and people are just still falling for that. We all know it. You get that email that looks like, hey, this is an attachment to, for a RFP or a quote or PO, and it just looks too good to that you can't pass it up, and you just click on it, and then suddenly you've downloaded some software or infected your machine. And I mean, everybody has fallen victim to it. It's just making sure that we have those protections in place to stop that from getting too far into the system.
So that, obviously that's an all levels of a company issue. So when we are, putting these packages together for a client, what kind of training for employee training is included in that?
So we do an annual assessment. It's an hour to 2 hours of going through, different things that could occur. They actually have to take a test at the end, and gives them an idea of what's going on in cybersecurity. And every year, and it changes. This assessment changes from year to year as attacks get different, uh, become different over the time. And then we run simulated phishing attacks, which means that we send these test spam emails, and if they click on them, rather than downloading bad payload or virus onto their computer, a web page pops up and says, "Hey, you fell for a phishing attack. Good thing this wasn't real." And you make you feel dumb. I mean, but it reminds you in those instances of like, this is a real problem. If I had clicked that, and then it it could have done bad things. But the good news is all that simulated testing is just simulations. It's just getting people used to, this is what it looks like, and this is the harm that it could do. And then some micro trainings once a week, just a quick like 4 or 5 minute video with a couple of questions about it. Just keeps it top of mind. So that's what we offer as a company, and I think having that three-phase approach, the annual assessment that's very comprehensive, the simulated email phishing, and then these little micro trainings that keep it top of mind. They all go hand in hand, and create this awareness of the threats that are out there.
Yeah, I've had so many people tell me that they have fallen for a phishing attack because they play on your emotions so much, or like you said, you want to be a good employee.
Well, I will share a quick story. I fell for one a couple of weeks ago. I felt really dumb about it, and it was perfect timing. I was waiting for a package. It was for a birthday, and I get an email earlier in the week that the package was supposed to be delivered on the birthday, and then I got another email from the shipping company that was delayed. And then I get another email that's saying, "Oh no, the shipping is on time." So I thought it was all related, and the one that said it was on time was actually a simulated phishing email. And
Oh
I
wow, it
clicked on the
wasn't
link
even
to.
telling you it was the delayed one.
Yeah, it was simulated phishing, and I clicked on it just to see where the package was because it was supposed to be delivered that day, and it hit me at the right time. I did not do a double check, and I'm really glad that it was simulated phishing and not real hacking. And all our protections would have come into place to prevent that from coming in, because our systems that we use, we have to turn those off for the simulated phishing to allow them to get through, because our protections are too good to allow for that just to come in naturally. So we turn down the defenses so those simulated emails can come through, and make the CEO of the company click on a bad link, and then so
Yeah.
first one I've ever, in the I don't know, 10 years that we've been doing this, first one that I've fallen victim to in that amount of time. But I felt sheepish afterwards. This is the first
Yeah.
time I'm telling anybody. So Sherry, you got to keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody else.
I don't know. Now it's out there. But I mean, that does show that anybody can
Yeah.
get those links and click them without realizing it. I don't always
Yeah.
like a text saying we can't deliver your package and give us all your information. And
Yeah, those are, you could spot some like really clearly, like, oh, this is not,
Mhm.
not legitimate, especially the text messages ones. USPS is delivering your package, click the link, and it doesn't even look like a USPS link.
Yeah.
But some of them are really good, and it just caught me at the wrong day, because I was literally waiting for a package, and unfortunately the package got here a day late, and I had to tell my daughter that getting her birthday present a day late. So I was
Yeah.
hoping the phishing email was legitimate,
Yeah.
that
And
it
I
was
think
arriving on
that
time.
I was going to say, I think that's the biggest thing is that we all have that brief second of like, well, what if it is real?
Yeah,
Like I don't want to miss this, even though you
but
suspect. I had somebody ask, they're like, those things online where they're saying they're going to give you money, that's not real, right? Like, but they kind of want it so bad that
that's the FOMO, right? Fear of missing
yeah,
out. And
yeah, like, well, what if
that's
what if
it's
it is?
yeah, it's just that emotion. Cyber criminals play on that social engineering emotion of fear of missing out, or the sense of urgency, or there's just a long list of emotions that they can play on. But certainly that sense of urgency, fear of missing out, those are probably the top two that they play on, and it certainly leads to a lot of bad decisions, like my clicked email. So,
Yeah, yeah, and so that's why we build these things to help mitigate those those
yeah.
happenings. So what kind of to wrap things up, what advice do you give people who are looking at IT services? What advice do you give them to get started?
Yeah, not all IT services are the same. A lot of companies are offering bare bones services uh, to get you started, but they're just not good enough today, and that's why we've had to, and we've talked about this on the program a number of times. We've had to revamp our services dramatically, and a good IT company is changing their services at least annually, of you know reviewing the vendors that they're working with, ensuring that they have the state of the art technologies they're implementing for their companies, that they are getting reviewed by a third party to ensure that their systems are correct. Because, how do you know that if your IT vendor gets hacked or is hacked, that your company is safe? And so having those third party controls of, reviewing your IT partners system. So you might get a great price. It might say, I'm going to offer this IT service for $15 a user, and it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then you get in there and figure out they're just offering, basic antivirus, no managed protection. Maybe they're just selling you a couple of tools, but nobody's looking at them ever. And it's just not apples to apples. It's apples to a rotten banana on the counter, unfortunately. Um, you can make banana bread out of it, but it's it takes a lot of work to make it delicious. So you got to make sure that you're comparing services that are effective. And then, depending on the line of business you're in, you need to make sure that whatever IT solution you're getting provided, will keep you protected, and it has the right solutions in place. And we have a buyer's guide for IT solutions on our website, stimulustech.com. If you go out there, we have an updated one for 2025 of questions you need to ask your provider. And we give this information for free, whether you're choosing to do business with Stimulus Technologies or your local service provider. These are questions and things that you need to look at in 2025 to make the best decisions. So that report's available, and I'm sure we'll include that in our show notes that you can go to that link and download it directly. It's a really good information, and we're constantly keeping that up to date. It's 2025's version. 2026 will be out next year, and we are always looking for ways to provide you information so you can make the best decisions about your IT and cybersecurity solutions.
Yes, definitely. And I will put the link down in the notes. And thanks, Nathan, for all the great advice as usual and for reminding us to be mindful about our links.
Great. And we will make sure that link in the notes is not malicious. It goes to a good web page. And
it's stimulustech.com.
Yeah. So no threes in there, a weird asterisk or something like that. It's stimulustech.com, and we'll get you that buyer's guide. So again, thanks for the great questions, Sherry, and thanks everybody for joining us.